Yeah, so I think one of the things that everybody should know is what they're good at and what they're bad at, right? And so management is actually not something that I'm particularly good at. In my roles, I never really had to manage teams larger than 2 people. So, this is a challenge that I have. So I guess I'm more, I'm leading, but I'm not necessarily managing. Other people manage. So there's leadership and management.
Yeah.
And hopefully they come in the same package. Not always. Okay, so how do you know when somebody's ready? Well, people are not, skilled, right? You can't, one person cannot do everything. So what we end up seeing is that companies that are able to go from the 0 to 1, the 1 to 10, these founders are scalable in a small way. If you look at the very large technology companies around the world, almost none of them are still led by the founder. We're talking about the first 15 years. So Amazon maybe is a good exception. Mark Zuckerberg brought in, very experienced management. So usually people are really good at like 0 to 1, or they're good at 1 to 10, or maybe 0 to 1, 1 to 10. But usually they don't go all the way. And so when somebody is ready, well, what we end up finding out is that companies that don't grow, those folks are not ready. And then we try and help the company fill in those management gaps. The challenge, the biggest challenge though, is that you cannot fill, it's very difficult to fill a leadership gap. Yeah. But usually, if you think about entrepreneurs are by definition crazy because they're doing something that's never been done before. They keep on, basically, they don't take a salary, they burn up all their savings. They don't spend time on their health, they don't get sleep, they don't see their family, and they don't exercise. They're just working, right? And then they're doing something and they keep on failing, but they don't give up. That's like definitionally insane.
Yes.
Yeah, so oftentimes those people actually are not that bad at leadership because they believe so much in what they're doing that it just emanates out of them and people will follow them. But they are actually technically nuts. Yeah.
It's interesting that you said that because first of all, of course, my co-founder is here. Okay, it's good. But a lot of people tell us that we are insane. Like, in fact, there's somebody here in this particular room that has told me to my face that I am mad. So I can't, and funny enough, I said, yes, I actually am. And so, just to buttress the point that you made of founders having an idea but believing in that idea and then literally trying to do everything possible to work, to pivot and all that, I think it's important for all of us that are here, SMEs and businesses and business people, to remember that, and I think I really just want to emphasize what we have said, to remind us all that even though people may say we are crazy, we are insane in terms of running a business, that insanity is what we actually need to be able to grow at this scale. So just thought to emphasize, that to what you said, and thank you for that. So if you could, still talking about delegation and leadership. So can you kindly share a story of a founder who, built a leadership team that allowed the company to scale far beyond them? And I ask this question from the point of view that, so as a leader in GFA, as a co-founder, one of the things I've realized is that I have to consistently evolve myself. The skills that I needed to start the company is different from the skills that I am trying to use now to grow the company, and very likely will be different from the skills that will be needed to scale the company. And so I recognize that I'm constantly evolving, and I also recognize that I need to learn more. And so I'm literally on a constant mission trying to get more and more information. So the question really is more, you kindly share a story in your experience over the last decades of a company that has literally been able to evolve, or the founder or founders that have been able to evolve themselves and actually scale this company.
Yeah, sure. So I spent a lot of time with Alibaba. So my first visit to Alibaba was 2003, and the entire company fit on one floor in a building half the size of this one. Okay, and I invested in the company downstairs, which built one of the first data centers in China. Yeah. So hopefully Alibaba is somewhere upstairs. Yeah, we got the data center downstairs, right? Yeah, okay. Yeah, so the company started to fail. They made a lot of mistakes. They did make quite a number of mistakes. In order to really drive culture, they brought in a guy named Samuel Kwan. He's an ex-GE guy or something. But they wanted not just the leadership or the middle management, but they wanted the rank and file to do things very, very differently than they had learned in school. I don't know if you ever know anything about the Chinese school system, but basically they have to memorize stuff. It doesn't really generally drive a huge amount of creativity. Okay, it's a rote learning, and if you are in the top, whatever, 2%, then you can go to university. If you're not, you can't. And so they did, some interesting things, like they would have all the team members stand on their heads. Okay, so I mean, if we're going to be doing things differently, you need to do things differently, and it breaks down a lot of barriers. So they're basically standing on their heads, like upside down. I mean, they didn't have to do it by themselves. They had some help.
Yeah.
Most of these people were not athletic enough to stand on their heads by themselves. But engineers. But it's a change of perspective, right? And so the Alibaba approach is that we cannot do things the way they were done before. The second thing is that they had to sell because once you have a company, you get some investment. But investment is the worst type of money you can possibly have, because the more investment you take, the less of your company you have. So I mean, I did it with Jack Ma like 5-6 times. I helped him with the IPO, and the only thing that he was really angry about through the entire process was that him and his team lost 95% of his company before the IPO. Okay, because he took investment, and then he made mistakes and had to take more investment. But they took 95% dilution. They sold 95% of the company. He became the richest guy in the world later, not because the 5% was worth all that much, but because he stole Ant Financial without paying for it, or he took it without paying for it. Maybe stole is a strong word, but if you take something without paying for it, then I don't know what you call that. So, one of the things that another change that they put in is if you're selling, you want to be when you're up on stage or when you're talking to somebody, you want to show that confidence. So they actually on everybody's desks, and back then they had a lot of desks. They would put a mirror up on the back of the desk, so that when people were selling over the phone, it would remind them to smile. Because if you're frowning, people can feel it even through the phone. But if you're smiling, they can feel that. And that actually measurably improved their sales. And then the second thing is they brought in people who are not technical. They brought in Joe Tsai, who was actually a lawyer and a banker from Goldman. He's now the chairman and basically running Alibaba at this point. They brought in other people to fill out various different roles. And then even though that they made a bunch of mistakes, they kept on changing. They kept on being quite nimble. And we try and help our founders do this. So it's about experimentation. We try very hard not to tell the founders what to do because we don't know. We're global. We are not even continental. We're not local. We don't have the answers. But what we do have is the experience of solving similar problems in various different markets around the world that have similar problems to here or challenges to here. So if you have a problem, if you have a challenge here, is the solution more likely to come from China or India, or is it going to come from Western Europe or North America? The challenges here are very, very, very different than the challenges in North America or Western Europe. So we've got like 20 plus years of scar tissue trying to solve challenges in India and China, and we're bringing that experience to local founders. But we don't have the answers. So you run the experiment, and then the market tells you, the market gives you the data. The market will give you that feedback. And then the goal here is to just do experiment after experiment after experiment. So you write down the experiment, you think about what the results are that you expect, you run the experiment, you compare, and then our goal is to get people to do 3 experiments a week. It's not that easy to do 3 a week, but if you can get anywhere close to 3 a week, you'll find that, before long, your business will look nothing like it did before. You will solve a lot of challenges, and your process and your path to growth will accelerate.
I'm going to expand a bit. Please, a round of applause for me.